Good morning and welcome to Bloomerang Academy. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Diana Otero. I have with me the lovely and talented and super awesome Margie Worrell. Yeah, I know you know her from Academy classes, and she's supporting me today, so I'm very thankful to have her with me. If you can hear me and see me, great. If not, let us know in the chat. Also, while you're there, let us know where you're joining us from and what the weather is like in your area. It is a sunny 49 degrees in Indianapolis today. At least that's what my machine tells me. So we are having some nice fall weather in the Indianapolis area. Very nice. A couple of housekeeping things before we start. Um, you can, of course, if you need the live transcript, click on that live transcript button to help you out. We also have the chat, which a lot of you have found. This is a great place to share your ideas with each other. This is going to be a little bit more interactive. I might ask you some questions. Maybe you have some tips to share with everybody else. Please put those in the chat. We love when we all learn from each other. We also have the Q&A open today. I will try my very best, and Margie's going to help on the back end to answer all of your questions during today's session. But if we don't get to all of your questions live, not to worry. We will get back to you via email. And this is a common question that we get. This class is going to be recorded. Everybody is going to receive an email with a link to the recording and the slides. So it might be going a little bit fast and you might want to dig in a little bit more. You can always get the recording, pause it, and go back to anything you want to refresh on. And Margie just posted in the chat, there's the dial-in number. You can dial in via audio through your computer or the dial-in number. A couple of more housekeeping items. As I mentioned, Margie already put the number in the chat there. That's good to have in case you have any internet connectivities issues as well. You have that number just in case. We'll share the slides and the recordings. The slides are going to have a link to some resources that you can take a look at as well. And all the questions that we don't get to answer live, we'll get back to you via email. Also, if you need further assistance beyond today, beyond this class, please reach out to support@bloomerang.com. Our support team is fantastic. I know, and I'm kind of a little biased because I worked on our support team as well, but they are fantastic and they are more than happy to help. So please don't hesitate to reach out. So what are we talking about today? This is the new user orientation. So hopefully you signed up for the right class. But I also wanted to hear from you. What is your comfort level with using Bloomerang? So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll right now. Are you more of a beginner? Maybe you're just getting started or you need a refresher. Maybe you've used Bloomerang before or not for a while and you want a refresher. Are you more intermediate? So somewhat comfortable with some areas, maybe some of the areas you use often, but need some help in others. Or you're advanced, you're pretty comfortable with using Bloomerang overall, but you're always open to learn maybe some new tricks or you don't know what you don't know. So it's nice to have a refresher like this as well. It looks like 79% of you here joining us today are beginners, 19% are intermediate, and 2% are advanced. So if you're advanced or you're intermediate, I hope we have some tips that we can share with you today, something new that you didn't know before. And also, if you have some tips from others, please share them in the chat as well. But welcome to everybody. My name is Diana Otero. As I mentioned earlier, I am a product marketing manager here at Bloomerang. I've been with Bloomerang over 8 years, so I've had a lot of practice talking to a lot of customers and nonprofits like you and what you need. I also served on the board of the Nantahala Hiking Club, which is a nonprofit that's one of the trail maintaining clubs of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. And what are we going to cover today? We are going to go through a general overview of everything in Bloomerang, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper, not too deep, but a little bit deeper into these areas. So the settings, constituents and groups, gift entry, report basics, letters and emails, data tools, and then payments and fundraising. So I'm going to launch another poll here, and I want to know, of these topics, what are you most interested to learn about today? And you can pick more than one. So we are going to go over everything, but I kind of want to get a gauge of what are you most interested in. And this could be related to what you do on a daily basis. This could be related to the topics that you need a little bit more help on. What are you most interested to learn about today? And if there's something that you're interested in that is not in the options, let us know in the chat. We might be able to work that in. And as I'll leave that poll up for a little bit more, and I want to talk about today's learning objectives. So this is the new user orientation class. And so we're not going to go in depth into each section. We have specific classes for those, but what I would like to help you with today is number one, I want to help build your confidence in navigating and using Bloomerang. Two, I want to help you become familiar with different areas of Bloomerang to help understand what you need to accomplish your tasks and your objectives and your goals. Maybe you need to do something within the CRM, but you're not quite sure how to get there or the best way to go about it. We'll talk about that today. And also learn the basics of how to accomplish your tasks efficiently. And that's a key word here. We don't have time to go in depth into everything, but we will be able to talk about the basics. Lovely. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll now. It looks like 61% of you are interested in the general overview. 46 are interested in letters and emails. 54 are interested in reports. And 40% are interested in constituents and groups. And right about 20 to 30% on the other items. Lovely. Great. And with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to stop sharing my video as well because I don't want you to get confused with me bouncing between screens, but let's jump right in. All right, so right now I am in my demo database, my database from my pretend organization. The first thing that I see when I log in, of course, is my dashboard. The first thing I will say is the most important button in Bloomerang. If you forget anything else from this session, at least remember this one most important button, which is the question mark icon over here. The question mark icon, that gives you access to our help and videos. You can click on this and that will take you to all of our help articles, some short videos that can help you navigate Bloomerang. What I like about this is you can search on a particular topic based on what you're trying to do. So we'll go ahead and click on that. I have it preloaded here. You can search based on what you're trying to do. So let's say you're trying to write an email or send a letter or print a letter, print an envelope. You can be specific with your search terms. You can search that right there. Or you can also just browse. Sometimes that's what I like to do if I'm just starting out, because maybe I don't know what to search on because I'm not sure yet, but I can just browse and take a look. And we have this nice getting started section here. This is what we recommend that you go through first to help you get up and running, to help you get your settings in order so that it prepares you for using your Bloomerang CRM. So that has your user and organization settings, fund campaigns appeals, Bloomerang payments, email setup, and billing. And more of our help articles here that go in depth based on what you want to do. So custom fields, groups, etc. If you are connected with any of our integrations, you can take a look at that here as well. Some of these articles will have some built-in videos as well. I will say we we release a lot of feature updates. So some of the videos may be a little bit older. If they are, let us know. But the flow and the functionality should stay relatively the same. So that's the question mark icon. You also have email support. You can email our support team from here. They try their very best to reply within 24 hours, but actually, most of the time, they get back to you within the same day. Um, you can also start a live chat from here. And when we say live chat, we do mean live chat. That's real time. There is no, I've experienced with other software that you have like, oh, there's 10 people in front of you, or it's a 10-minute wait time. You get a real person, you get a real human in real time when you start a live chat. There are a couple of helpful things around here as well. Like there's the features portal. If you find the features portal is a way to make suggestions in terms of what feature functionality you would like to see in Bloomerang. You can submit that there. You can also see other suggestions and upvote them. So this is a great way for your voice to be heard. Send that over to the features portal, and that's something that our product team um, reviews on a regular basis. Also, if you want to save a little on your expenses, you can refer a friend, and we'll send you a gift for that if they sign up. So that is the most important button in Bloomerang. You also have resources on our Bloomerang website. So, of course, a lot of you may already be familiar with Academy. If you're not, just go to bloomerang.co/academy. Also on our website, you can go to resources and go to Bloomerang Academy. This will show you the upcoming classes, right? So you have your um, upcoming this week and next week year-end appeals, creating emails. Again, we'll talk a little bit about emails today, but you want something in depth. We have standalone classes for those. And this is something a lot of people miss. Scroll down a little bit further and you'll see past Academy sessions. So this will show you, and this will have a link to all the previous Academy classes we have ever had. So you have your beginner classes, intermediate, advanced, and again, you can kind of scroll through and um, look through what you need and what you're trying to do and watch that specific class. Great. So those are the resources to help you get started. Now, let's go back to the database. First, or second, I should say, there's also your user settings here. You can click on that. You can edit your user and log out. This is a great place for if you need to update your email address, your time zone, your password, you can do all of that here. The other thing I wanted to note is we get a lot of questions on this. Sometimes people will ask, hey, I'm not seeing everything that you have in my database. Maybe you're not seeing communications. Maybe you're not seeing settings. Maybe you're not seeing Kindful. What's going on? Is it broken? What is happening? So what you see in your left side navigation here depends on what your user permission is, right? So in Bloomerang, we have two main user permissions. We have the administrator user that has access to everything. That's what I'm using right now, so I can see everything. And then we have our standard users, which can be further refined. So that's under settings, and settings, that one in particular, you only have access to settings if you are an administrator in the database. So let's talk about users first. And the reason I want to talk about this is maybe you're trying to get to an area, maybe you're trying to do something, but can't figure out how to get there or don't have access. Let's talk about what the user settings are so you know what you need and what's available to you. So we're going to go to users. So these are the existing users in my database. I have quite a few. If I wanted to create a new one, I would click new. put in their username, their email, their name, their time zone, and this is where you see the user permissions. So an admin user has access to everything in the database, whereas a standard user, you can select, or an administrator, once they're setting up new users, can select which areas of the database this person has access to. So for example, if I unclick reports and data tools, then this user would only see home, they would only see communications, they can go into constituents and gifts. They're not going to see this at all, the reporting, they're not going to see data tools at all. So I can pick and choose, like even for communications, for example, um, if I only click emails, then under communication, they're not going to see letters. So if you're not seeing something, or if it looks like your view is different from somebody else, it is likely that your user permissions are different. So if you need something more, you'll need to talk to an administrator user in the database, and you can talk to them about like, hey, I really need access to this, or I can't run my own reports. Can you check my access, or can you make me an administrator? Again, depending on what you need to do, you can talk to them about your access. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, because there's a couple of different levels of access. So first is whether or not you can get to that area. The second is whether or not you can edit certain things, right? So maybe I have the report permission checked, but I don't have the edit permission check. That means I can access the reports area. I can see the reports that people have built. I can't create my own or edit reports. So that's another thing to look at. Um, for transactions as well, do you want to allow a user to see and edit all, or maybe you only want view access, for example, or maybe you only want them to be able to view and edit their own transactions or the ones they entered, or maybe you don't want this user seeing any giving history at all, you can do that as well. So if you're not sure what your user access is, you can talk to our support team or find out the person in your organization that is the administrator, and they'll be able to tell you what access you have or update your access so you can gain access to those areas that you need. We have a great question here from John. What reports can non-admin users create? Great question. Um, if you have the permission to create reports, you can create any type of report. So we don't have limitations on what kind of reports you create. As long as you have access to create reports, you can create any reports. Great question. And another question here from Cindy, can there be more than one admin user? Absolutely. You can have an unlimited amount of users and an unlimited amount of admin users. That's up to your organization. And that is something we recommend. Don't be sharing usernames and passwords. Each person that's logging into your database, give them a user account, and you can tailor their permissions to what they need or what they need based on what they do. Another question here, is it okay to delete an administrator account if they are no longer active? Would that impact any access or past setup? Great question. Um, I'm going to cancel out of here and go to one of my users. Well, you can see here, for example, Princess Buttercup. Her name is in italics. And if we open that up, you can see that the active button is unchecked. So if I activate, I can toggle that on and off. If it's active, this user can log in. If it's not, they cannot log in. So even if they have a user account, if their user account is inactive, they won't be able to log in. So two options for you there. Let's say someone is no longer with your organization. You can deactivate their account. You can also delete their account if necessary. Um, there's a couple of things where you might see the user account. So when you're, for example, creating constituents or entering gifts, there's going to be a field that says created by, and it's going to show the username. If you delete a user, you lose tracking on their tasks. It's going to appear blank. So it's going to look like maybe completed tasks were not assigned to anybody because the user have been because the user has been deleted. Great questions. So a big thing there to start with. If you're confused about you hear someone talking about something, but that's not something you see, that could be a permission thing. So take a look at that. Great. Now that we're in settings, again, the settings area is only accessible to users. So what can you do in here? You can create more users, you can edit users, you can configure you can enter your organization settings. So that's your name, your address information, your NTE code, your fiscal year start. This is nice and it's important because it feeds into your donor retention wheel. If you go by fiscal year, it will go by this date here. Also, if you're running reports, if you're filtering by fiscal year, it goes by the date that's in your fiscal year settings. You'll also have your two-factor authentication here if you want to turn that on for extra security, and your database export. The database export is great if you want to take data outside of Bloomerang. Bloomerang backs up your information, but if you want an extra backup, you can do that as well. Settings is also where you configure your custom data. So this can be your custom fields and values, and you can see that on the constituents profile, on transactions, interactions, notes. So custom fields are for things that are specific to your organization that we don't have default fields on. So for example, maybe your organization, your nonprofit organization needs to track people's um, fostering history. If you're an animal organization, for example, you can create custom fields for that. That's something that's specific to your uh, NTE code or your specific organization. You can create fields for that. The custom fields are going to appear if it's on the profile. Well, on any of these, it's going to be below the default fields. So you're going to have the default fields first, and then you're going to have the custom fields. When you create custom fields, you can also, there's a checkbox to see or that you can check if the custom field is required or not required. If it's required, you cannot save the constituent or transaction or interaction or note unless that's filled out. There's also custom values. So custom values, these are fields that, or these are data points that Bloomerang has fields for, but you can customize the value. For example, there is a relationship field within Bloomerang, but we don't know what type of different relationships you track. There's a fields that capture funds, campaigns, appeals, but we don't know what funds, campaigns, appeals you track. In this case, you just need to set the value. If there's any integrations that you're interested in, they're going to be in the integrations section. Or if you want to turn on or enable some integrations, we have accounting integrations, email if you want to connect to MailChimp, the NCOA, API keys is there as well. The NCOA I love this feature. NCOA is National Change of Address. So Bloomerang partners with TrueGivers to offer you nightly NCOA updates as part of your Bloomerang subscription, but you do need to turn it on. So what this does is if a constituent of yours moves and our partner TrueGivers finds the new address, that automatically gets updated in your database. So you don't have to pay extra for an NCOA. This can happen as often as nightly, depending on how often your data is being updated or how often you're getting new information, new data into your database. Payments is also here. So this is really important because a big part of our jobs is fundraising, right? And so Bloomerang integrates with several different processors. We recommend Bloomerang Payments. This is our in-house processor. This isn't a third party. It is powered by Stripe on the back end, but because it is not a third party integration, our support team can help you if you have questions with payout with Bloomerang payments. The great thing about this as well is if you have Bloomerang payments, you have access to your payout details. So you can see, you can control how often you get your payouts, and you can see details of each payout, or you'll have a summary of your payouts and view details of each as well. If you use credit cards, this is especially useful for recurring gifts. Um, there is a section here for credit card payment failures. You can also get to this from the notification bell here. So if you have a recurring payment and it was supposed to process yesterday, for example, and for some reason it failed, it didn't go through, Bloomerang has a mechanism where it automatically retries the payment, but also you can check the payment failures dashboard in case, for example, well, the card has expired. So even if we retry, it's not going to go through. You can still call the donor and recapture that donation, recapture that payment before too long of a time lapses. And once you have a payment processor connected, you can do two wonderful things. One, you can process payments directly in Bloomerang. We'll take a look at that next. So you can add a gift. Let's say maybe a donor gave you a call, they're on the phone, they have their credit card information ready to give you. You can enter that into Bloomerang and process the gift right away. The other great thing you can do is you can create online forms. So this is kind of the magic ingredient, right? Before you can create your online forms and start taking in online donations, you need to be connected with a processor. And this is the area where you would go to do that. We also have this lovely feature for automatic email receipts. So you can you can turn this on or off, and you can select the email you would like to get automatically sent whenever a constituent makes either a one-time payment or a pledge payment or recurring payment that is auto processed. Right now I have my default. That's just a great way to make sure that the constituent knows, the donor knows that their gift went through. And you have website tracking here. I'll come back to this when we talk about when we go to a constituent's profile. We have a quick question here. Is a processor just like PayPal? Yes, PayPal is a processor. So um, PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, Google Pay, those are different payment methods. So you still need a processor to be able to process payments, or to actually, I keep saying process, but to process the transactions itself, and to make sure that the money actually goes from PayPal to your bank account, or goes from the credit card to your bank account, from Apple Pay to your bank account. Great question here from Lexi. Will PayPal Venmo options be coming soon? Yes, they are coming very soon. Stay tuned for the announcement on that. Now, great question here as well. How can I create a custom automatic receipt that I want to use instead of the Bloomerang default? This picks the values that you've already created in your emails. So create an email first. Make sure it's a transaction email with a purpose of receipt, and then it will appear in this dropdown and you can select that. Great question. Now, that's the settings. And again, that's only available to administrators. The other sections that we'll talk about are available to a wider audience, again, depending on the level of access that you have. We have our dashboard. A couple of things to know here. Most of them are self-explanatory. Recent constituents, reports, amounts raised. One thing to note about here is raised talks about donations, pledges, and recurring donation payments. So if you have pledges and pledge payments in there, this goes by raised amount. So that's something to keep in mind. Unless it specifies revenue, like the month over month dashboard here, all the numbers on the dashboard go by raised. So that's donations, pledges, recurring donation payments. You have your donor retention wheel. You can customize this. Earlier, I showed you where to set the fiscal year if you're an administrator. And if you select fiscal year here, it will go by what you have in your organization settings. I'm going to cancel that out of that from now. You have your first time donor calls. So Bloomerang prioritizes your first time donors that you should call and give a thank you to. You have your tasks, you have your campaign progress. So earlier we took a look at the settings, the custom values, and the campaigns. Any campaign that is active and has a goal, you can see that on your dashboard. So you can, any campaign that you want to track, I would recommend making sure it's active and it has a goal amount associated with it. For example, you can see here I have my Giving Tuesday 2022 and 2023 campaign. I haven't started on our 2023 campaign yet, but I want to compare how we're doing compared to the previous years. So I wanted both of them on the dashboard. The dashboard refreshes every night, but if you make any changes during the day, click on that update button over here. I'm going to move my mouse a little bit more. That's another common question that we got. Hey, I added this donation or I added this campaign. I'm not seeing it on the dashboard. What's going on? Make sure to click on that update button and it will refresh the dashboard for you in real time. Lovely. Now let's take a look at our constituents. So a lot of the things that we do in the settings, it's really to set us up for how do we want to use the Bloomerang CRM, right? You're creating custom fields that you want to track on the constituents profile. You're creating custom fields that pertain to certain gifts. You're setting up your funds, campaigns, appeals. Where do we see all of these things? Let's go to JLove here and we'll do a little tour. A lot of you are likely familiar with the constituent profile already, but we'll do a little refresher. Right, so you have your summary, you have your giving summary here, revenue and raised. Again, something that we get a lot of questions around. Raised is dollars committed, donations, pledges, recurring donation payments. Revenue is dollars received. So donations, pledge payments, and recurring donation payments. The difference between raised and revenue, if you ever see those, and you might see that on the dashboard, you might see that on reports, is whether or not you're counting the pledge or the pledge payment. For example, if I make $1,000 pledge, that's $1,000 raised amount. If I then make a $500 payment on that pledge, that $500 is the revenue. So when you're looking at your reporting, when you're looking at your dashboard, what is it you're looking at? What is it you would like to report on? That is important to know. You have your engagement level here and the generosity score. The engagement level is this constituent's engagement with your organization. It doesn't just look at giving, it looks at a variety of factors. And it's mostly getting information from the timeline. So it looks like maybe they volunteer. Do they open your emails? Do they visit your website? Do they attend events? All of that factors into the engagement level. Generosity, on the other hand, so these are wealth insights from our partners over at Donor Search. So at the very basic level, everybody has access to the generosity score, and that's free, and that comes with your Bloomerang CRM. The constituent does need to have a US address though, so they can be scanned. There are more or deeper levels of donor search that are an add-on. If you're not sure if you have them, if you see this view and donor search button, you likely have prospect view. If you see view generosity details, you've had a batch screen and you can get more information. But the difference between the engagement level and the generosity score is the engagement level is specific to your organization. The generosity score looks at giving capacity and giving history, not just with your organization. Donor Search uses public information to look at their entire giving history and calculate capacity. So engagement is specific to your organization, generosity is overall for this constituent. We'll go into the profiles real quick. So you have your default fields here up top, and you have your custom fields here at the bottom. I have a lot of different types of custom fields because I've been using my database for a while and I test a lot of things, but you can check out what's there and what's available to you. Another plug as well, we're heading into tax receipting season. You can download this particular constituent's tax summary from here. You can also insert this into an email from Bloomerang. We're going to scroll up and look at the timeline. So you'll see the timeline is a mix of interactions, tasks, notes, gifts. Let's talk a little bit about how you add things to the timeline and what the differences of each of these entries are. So you can have new donation that's mostly used for your one-time donations. I made a gift, I sent you a check, I gave you my credit card info, that's going to come in as a new donation. Or maybe someone makes a pledge to your organization. So a pledge is, and how that's different from a recurring donation is, a pledge is a commitment, right? If I say I'm pledging $1,000 to your organization, that means at some point I will want to actually give you $1,000. And it is more tied with like and that can be, the payments can be one time or the payments can be in installments. Once I have fulfilled that commitment, then my pledge is um, completed. My pledge is fulfilled. Whereas a recurring donation, this typically happens on a recurring basis. It could be monthly, weekly, yearly. It just keeps going. I give you $5 a month, $10 a month until I tell you to stop. It doesn't matter what my total amount is by the point that I stop. The 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 bigger thing to look at here is it is a set amount at a recurring frequency. This is where you also add interactions, tasks, notes, and relationships. Now, what if I want to add a new pledge payment or a new recurring donation payment? How do I do that? I don't see an option for new pledge payment or new recurring donation payment. Well, you just click new donation, and if the constituent has any open pledges or any current active recurring donation schedules, you'll actually see that here and be able to select. So I can select, for example, is this a new donation, just a one-time donation, or no, actually, they wanted to make an extra payment on this recurring gift. And you can even multi-select. So for those of you who use split gifts, you can do that within Bloomerang. And um, this is an easy way to get started on your split gifts. So you can select as many as you want, and then you can select split payment, or you can just select one and then create that recurring donation payment. This donor doesn't have any pledges, but if they did and I selected that, this would say create pledge payment. Now, there is another type of donation that I don't see on the drop down, and that's soft credits. So, soft credits are a way to give a donor credit for maybe dollars that they raised that didn't necessarily come from their own pocket. So, this is great for your peer to peer fundraisers. If maybe you have some um, solicitors, things like that, you can soft credit them. Now, when you create a donation, you're going to see a field here for the soft credit because because it's used as a way to give someone credit for bringing in dollars, it needs to be tied with a donation. So you can't just enter a soft credit by itself. You need to start another transaction first, and then there will be a field for soft credits. You can add as many soft credits as you need, and you can break up the amount. For United Way, for example, if they send you a check for $500, you can note that $100 is from X person, um, $200 is from Y, $200 is from Z. So you can split up the soft credits. Um, there isn't a limit that we know of, but the more soft credits you add, it might slow down your system. So I would recommend adding maybe up to 20 soft credits just to make sure you don't have any performance issues. So a lot of these gift fields are going to be similar. Again, up top here is your default fields, and at the bottom is any custom fields that you create for your gifts. You have options here for letter and email receiving, or for what email this is going to be received. So for example, if I save this donation today, of course, I would have to fill in the required fields first. I can send them the default, or I can send one of my pre-made emails. And as soon as I save this gift, it's going to send out that email. Or if I would like to send a letter, I can pick a letter, click that letter, and once I click save, it's going to take me directly to the letter editing screen. So I can make some edits if I need to and then print that letter out. Great question here from Katie. Do the tax summaries happen by default? Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't used that before, that's under the profile screen. Bloomerang will automatically generate the tax summary here for each of the constituents. We don't send it out automatically, but you can send an email, put in a field there for the tax summaries, and that will generate for each of the recipients. Great question. For recurring donations that are received offline, how are they recorded? You would go through the same process. So you would still do new donation. Let's say Jay sent in a check for as an extra payment on this recurring donation. I can create that recurring donation payment, add that as an extra payment. And instead of a saved payment method, I can enter maybe cash or check depending on how they paid offline. Great question. What is the best practice recording gifts from a donor advised fund? Great question, and a question we get often. Our general recommendation is you create a constituent account and for the entity that wrote you the check, and you enter the gift on the entity that wrote you the check because that's who you received the check from and that's who you are receiving. The donor that gave through the donor advised fund, they're getting the receipt from the donor advised fund. So for tax receiving purposes, you would enter that on the entity who you receive the check from, that's the donor advised fund, and then you can soft credit the actual donor. So you can still keep track of that, still acknowledge them for it, and still nurture that relationship with the donor directly. Great question. And that's our constituent section. So again, how this ties together, think of it as your settings. What additional fields do you want to capture about your constituents? What additional fields do you want to capture about your gifts? What relationships do you want to capture? We didn't go into detail here, but you can create your own relationships that you track. You can create as many relationships that you need to track. Kind of related to constituents is groups as well. Some of these groups are dynamic, so you'll see these lightning bolts. Constituents are automatically added to those groups. Everyone by default is a prospective donor. As soon as they make their first gift, they become a new donor. As soon as they make another gift, they may be retained, they may be recurring, depending on the gift that they have. You can also create your own groups. And this is really great for segmentation. We won't go into detail about groups today. We have classes that talk about groups, but I just wanted to show you how your constituents feed into your groups. And if you go into your groups as well, you'll get some high level metrics about the members of this group. So think about how you want to segment your constituents. Do you want to create groups for them that you can easily track and see the metrics of? You can do that in groups. We have a quick question here. Can you search in groups? there isn't a search button that you see here, but you can filter the results, right? So if you're looking for a particular person, you can search for that name here. You can also filter by different things like uh, email, phone number, address, employer, or it depends if you're looking for one specific person or um, a subset of that group. You can use the filter results here. Great question. Another question here, can I email an entire group? Absolutely. So we have a filter for groups, and you can use that filter in your letters, your emails, and your reports. So head on over to your email, build your email under the filters, filter for group is, and you can select any of the groups that you have set up. Great question. Lovely. All right. Let's take a quick look at reporting. A lot of you wanted to learn more about reporting today. First, if you haven't visited our reports page in a hot minute, you'll notice that there's a new section where you can create folders. So folders are a great way to organize your reports. For example, maybe you want to organize your report by fiscal year or calendar year. Maybe you want to organize your report by the user who's using the report, maybe by the type of report. Like, hey, these are the reports we typically send to board members. These are the reports that are in preparation for our annual reports, or these are reports for a specific campaign. However you want to organize your reports, you can do that using folders. Everyone who has access to reports can see all the reports that are in your system, regardless of who created the report. You have some quick actions here. You can view the report. You can copy a report. Um, this is kind of a hidden feature, or like not easy, or easy to overlook feature that you can copy a report. Let's say Margie created a report in here, and I want to fiddle with the filters a little bit, but I don't want to mess up her report. I can create a copy of that report and make my own edits on that. I can export to Excel. I can deactivate the report. I can delete it from here. And then I can create new reports. So you can build any type of report from scratch. And if you're wondering, this is a big question we get, how do I know if I need to create a constituent report versus a transaction report, interaction notes, etc.? Think of it this way. A constituent report is a list of constituents. It's going to have one line per constituent. It's a list of constituents. Transaction report is a list of transactions. So one line per transaction. If I have a constituent, if I have a donor who has given more than once, they're going to have a line for each of their gifts. So the transaction report is a great way to see transaction detail. I'll be able to get some summary fields in a constituent report. I can have a list of people, and I can have a column for their lifetime giving or last year revenue, for example, summary fields, right? But since it's a list of people, it's not going to itemize for me all their gifts. If I want to itemize the gifts, if I want a list of their gifts, I will need a transaction report. Same with interactions, notes, and tasks. One line per interaction, one line per note, one line per task. So what do you want to see a list of? Is it a list of people? Is it a list of gifts, a list of interactions, and so on? Constituent fields are always going to be available in all types of reports, right? Even if I'm in a transaction report, of course I can add their address, email address, things like that. If it's about the constituent, it's available everywhere. But if I want things like the fund that they gave to, that's only available in the transaction report. If I want that kind of detail, then I need to use that kind of report. If you're not sure where to start, or maybe you want to get some ideas about what kind of reports you can run, we have a lot of report templates that you can start from. Now, all of these report templates have pre-built filters and columns that have been added that we think would be helpful, but you can always customize them. If it has a pre-built filter for date that goes by calendar year and you want to go by fiscal year, you can change that. If it has a filter for um, a specific time period, let's say 2 years, and you want to look at 5 years, you can change that. If you want to take a look at, um, we have pledge details here. If you want to look at outstanding pledges with pledge payments to date, maybe you just want to also put recurring donations in there, you can customize that report. All of these reports you can build from scratch. We just pre-made them for you as a starting point. You can customize them to fit your needs. So you can select any of these reports. Let's start with, let's go with live event because that's a report that everybody uses, right? Include and exclude who I want to see in the report, exclude who I don't want to see in the report. So think of it as exclude is a great way to kind of narrow down who's in your include list already. Something I want to point out as well, constituent versus household. Constituents list one line per constituent. Household lists one line per household. Household doesn't mean that if I am not in a household, I won't be in a report. Household is just a way to group constituents who are in a household together. So for example, if we go by constituent, it's going to list me on one line, it's going to list my husband on another line. If I click this to household, it's going to just show one line for our household and it's going to combine our giving. So, for example, if there are gifts on his account and gifts on my account, it's going to show the combined total. If you have someone who's not in a household, they're still going to be in the report. So, that's a report tip for you there. And then we had a question here. How do you change calendar year or fiscal year? So you go here. So date is fiscal year here, for example. Just go in there and it shows you, last month, quarter, fiscal year, this year. If it says this year, that goes by calendar year. If it says fiscal year, it goes by the fiscal year in your settings. Great questions. So ands and ors here, I like to think of it as a Venn diagram. If they're connected by an and, it's the intersection of that Venn diagram. That's what you're looking for. If it's or, they can be in any and they can be in your report. So a couple of things to note there, right? The household versus constituent, include versus excludes, ands versus ors. Once you master those three things, you are on your way to mastering reports. Great questions. A couple of questions, we already answered that. Will that report using the template then get saved and given a special name? If you save it, you have to save it. So it doesn't automatically get saved. Go into the details, give it a name, then you can save it, and it's going to be available for everybody or anyone who has access to view it and use it. I'm going to go back to the reporting screen real quick. I saw a question on how do you add reports to a folder. I'm going to put a test folder in here. Once you have created a folder and you click on the action button, you'll see that the button for move to folder is now available and you can move that over. Great question. Now I want to talk about communication options real quick. Mainly, it seems self-explanatory, but we get a lot of questions on it as well. Letters are intended to be mailed out to your constituents. We do not have a way to automatically send these out to your constituents. So you're meant to design these emails in Bloomerang, send that letter out, print it, or send it to a mail house, and then send that over to your constituents. Emails are delivered to their inbox. Whenever you send an email or letter, it's always going to generate an interaction on the constituent's timeline. You want a record that you sent that mailing or you sent that email. So you can keep track, and that factors into your into your constituents' engagement level as well. With the filtering that we saw in reports, it's the same filtering that will be available to you in emails and letters. So once you master filtering, you're using that in 3 major areas of Bloomerang: your reports, your letters, your emails. You can even reference reports in an email or letter. So let's say you've already created a report, you can go into an email or letter and filter for that report. You don't have to recreate the filters. Another thing that's nice about our emails as well, or 2 things that I would like to highlight, is once an email has been sent, you're going to have your tracking tab. So you're going to have your tracking metrics on deliverability, open stats. You'll see recipient engagement, most clicked links, and you'll see this on the interaction uh, on your constituents as well. So you can see that as a whole for the mailing or on an individual level on the constituents interaction. The other nice thing about emails, or well, one of the nice things about emails, is you can also schedule an email to go out at a later date if you would like. Right now, I don't have any that meets the filters, but this is great for um, setting up emails that for campaigns that are coming up, for example, Giving Tuesdays, if you're participating in that, you can set up your emails that you're planning to send ahead of time and schedule them to go out later so you don't have to worry about it day of. Um, and I should have mentioned this in reporting as well. You can schedule reports as well. So you can schedule reports to go into your inbox or really anyone else's inbox. They don't even have to be a Bloomerang user. So that's a great way to get insights in your inbox. So you can schedule reports, you can schedule emails as well. Um, And then data tools, really quickly, I wanted to touch on this is what's the difference between all of these data tools and what is it for? Data tools are to help you manage your data and help keep your database clean and organized. So import if you have a spreadsheet of constituents or donations or interactions that you want to input into Bloomerang. Maybe you're just getting started to put your constituents into Bloomerang, or maybe you're coming from a different system and you want to add your donations. You can do that via import. Bulk updates allows you to update the fund campaign appeal on transactions. Let's say they were coded incorrectly, you were coming from messy data. This is a great way to easily and in bulk update those transactions in your database. The bulk delete, be careful of this option, right? Because you can permanently remove any constituents, tasks, transactions, interactions, and notes from your database. It's like they were never there. So this is kind of like your nuclear option if you're doing some cleanup and you need to remove these items permanently from your database. The bulk delete is how you would do that. So importing does not delete any data in your database. Um, I've heard some customers try to do a hack of, oh, if I import a blank value, is that going to delete it? No. Um, the bulk delete is what you want to do. And then merge duplicates, you can get to this 2 ways. So there's merge duplicates from here or also from this notification. Um, the Bloomerang system does have a way to automatically kind of detect duplicates and merge them, for example, if they're giving through online form. But there are some things that need that extra human eye. And so we put this in front of you and you can decide what to do with your duplicates. If this is the same person, for example, I can merge this. I can also merge multiple constituents if I want, or maybe they're not duplicates, they're meant to be separate. I can click not duplicate instead. And that just helps you keep your data clean. Whew. Well, great question here. Can you include custom field as a matching criteria? Not right now. So it looks at email, address, name, phone number, combinations of those. If you want additional fields to match by, this is a great plug. Going back to our features portal here, you can make a suggestion over there. Great questions. All right, we're right at time here. So I'm going to wrap up a little bit, but whew, that was a lot of information to go over um, in an hour. And we can keep talking about this, but that's what the rest of our academy classes are for. So, if you would like to dig in more deeper into a particular topic that you need, make sure to check out these academy classes. A lot of these classes we do live again, but if you need the information now, you don't need to wait for the next time we do a live session on reports or the next time we do a live session on letters. You can go back here and watch the previous recording and then check out what's coming up. This may be relevant for you. And if you haven't already done so, you can sign up and you can just get these upcoming emails in your inbox. So not upcoming emails, upcoming classes in your inbox. So it will let you know what classes are coming up and you can sign up for them then. So, thank you so much for spending an hour with us today to talk about Bloomerang and how really to help you get started. I hope this was helpful. Again, as a reminder, everyone's going to receive an email with a link to the recording um, so you can review it at your leisure. And again, go back to those classes. To those previous classes, check out the ones you need more in-depth data on. And I hope this gives you a great place to start. Thank you again. Thank you, Margie, for speed typing and answering all of the questions behind the scenes. We know we still have some unanswered questions. We'll make sure to get back to you via email. In the meantime, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being part of the Bloomerang family. And thank you so much for all that you do. All of you are essential, and we so appreciate everything that you do. So thank you, and we hope to see you in another Academy class soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.